Today on the Girldefined show, we are talking about the cultural stereotypes for a man and a woman's hormones and sex drives. Do all men actually crave sex all the time, the way that society portrays them to be? Is it true that a woman's sex drive is high when she's single, but then tanks after she's married? Like, what is that about? How are a man and a woman's hormones actually different? And did God design us to be this way? Did he design us to be the same? Design us to be different? What is fact? What is fiction? And how do we truly get healthy? We are going to dive into all of that today with my guest, Dr. Patrick Flynn, who is known as the Hormone Whisperer. And whether you're single or married, really, you have hormones and you don't want to miss out on this fascinating and eye-opening conversation. Dr. Patrick, welcome to the Girldefined show.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Okay, how in the world did you get known as the Hormone Whisperer? We'll just start right there.
Okay, people always ask that, and I will actually let you know, I didn't name that myself. I'd be very clear about that. I legitimately, this was I'd say about 15 years ago, had 3 new patients come in, and no joke, this is not a joke, this totally been verified by all my staff and everything. They said, we want to see the Hormone Whisperer, and I'm not joking, and that it just stuck. And they all were suffering with infertility. But see, my story, as I was an unhealthy child, had some health issues that way, and that's what got me into health, and we can get into that a little bit later. But the real story got me into hormones when I realized that I was put in a situation where I had to make a choice. I met this beautiful woman back 24 years ago. And on the first couple of days we started dating, she looked at me, she goes, I think I'm going to marry you. And I looked at her, I said, I think you're actually right. And so we started to date, and then after about a couple weeks in our dating life, she had me come over. I was still not a doc yet. I was in my final part of my internship. And I came over to her house and came to the door and knocked on the door and answered. She was crying. And it was interesting because I'm like, oh my goodness, we went dating 2 weeks. What did I do so far? And so we came in and sat down, and she started telling me how sick she was. That morning she got her period, and she described it as, she imagined having skin being ripped off your arm. That's what it felt like. And before I even got there, she was curled up in a ball, just massively in pain, puked, throw up. And then she started to let me know she suffered from endometriosis, suffered from ulcerative colitis, cystic acne, and cluster headaches. And going to be a doc within a couple months, I had no clue. If you looked at her, she didn't present with any of those things. Obviously, this time I was 24, she was 22. And it was interesting because then she started telling me a story, and I realized that she wasn't crying because she was sick that day. She was crying because she told me how sick she was and she couldn't have children. And she's been to all these specialists and all these things and they almost took her uterus out when she was 19 years old. Like, it was so bad.
Oh, wow.
So long story short, I had to make a choice there, and I sat there and I said, okay, listen. And some things from my background just didn't make any sense. And so I had to make a choice. Do I stay or do I go? And the reason why she was crying is because she looked at me, she says, listen, I'm going to give you an opportunity to break up with me because I don't want you to not have children in your future. And that's why she was really crying. It was an opportunity. And obviously where things came about, well, I chose to stay. And now 24 years later and 4 daughters later, obviously that's how it started. But what it did start is the fact that when she told me that she had a problem that way, I looked and said, okay, listen, that doesn't make sense what you're going through because, these hormonal things that you're dealing with that way. I'm like, let me see what the doctors are doing with you. And then we're going to get into it quite detailed, but I'll tell you right now, the majority of women, even to this day, have no clue about their hormones. The doctors that you're being taken care of have absolutely worse clue about your hormones, but not only misleading, but they're lying to you. And people say, doc, how can you say that? I'm like, well, look at it this way. Breast cancer, diabetes, obesity, all these major issues will have some hormonal component to it. They're getting worse as time goes on. I tell people, our current medical system and the weathermen are the only people that are wrong all the time. We keep on going back, asking the same questions, see if they're going to help us. And I'm like going, and it's because the results speak for themselves. So what I did is I started to figure some things out because I found out that there were some things going on with her. And I said, let me see your labs. And I realized that, once again, their view on hormones still to this day is very incomplete. There isn't a day that goes by that people are very frustrated with their doctors where people say there's nothing wrong with them that they can find and all things that. And we'll get into detail of it that way, but that's how it all started. It started from a demand need. And then I figured out some things and then started to apply them. And the next thing you know, here's a 24-year-old kid from Green Bay, Wisconsin, started an office with, no joke, $500. And now we're a big international company. I speak all over the world on this stuff.
Wow. Hormones are something that I'm still learning so much about. So I feel like I get to have a personal consultation with you on this call, but not really, because there's so much more I want to talk about than just my issues. But I have been diagnosed with unexplained infertility. Our community of listeners know that. I have had this diagnosis for 12 years. I've worked hard on my hormones to get things right. I feel so much better than I did even just a few years ago, just changing things about my health and my diet and learning more about my body as a woman and how I'm supposed to function the right way. And I have had to abandon some of the mainstream ideas in the medical world that I have been
Yeah.
told in order to find some answers. So I know a lot of our listeners can relate, whether it's infertility or PCOS or endometriosis or just their sex drive. We're going to talk about that. Like, what should we expect to be normal? Because what we've been told from mainstream doctors isn't really panning out. So in what other ways do you see the mainstream medical society getting things wrong when it comes to our hormones?
Well, it's just even teaching. Let's start there. The kids, if you can give a person an understanding, they can make a choice themselves. For example, I'm going to say something. I'm going to ask you some basic questions that way. And so this will be your consult because I'll treat you just like a patient right now, and we're going to walk through it. And then this is the part that once again is being misconstrued and misled with people. But let me ask you a question. If you look at, let's start with guys. By nature, guys are much more simpler hormonally than women are. We'll get into that in great detail. But I want you to think about this. But you know this, studying the human body a little bit this way. If you look at the major hormone that dominates men's life, which is it? What do you think it
Testosterone.
is? Testosterone. We all know that.
Yeah.
And once again, very measurable things. That great, free testosterone, great. Now, obviously, women are different. They're dominated by another set of hormones. And what do you think is the most dominant set of hormones for women?
Estrogen.
What if I told you estrogen's not a hormone? What if I told you you've been lied to your whole life about that?
I've been diagnosed with high estrogen.
Yes, but
Okay.
let's do this then. So let's do this. And here's the mistake. See, everybody's like, wait, no, doc. Estrogen, wait, no. Do me a favor. Grab your phone, type in, try to find me the hormone estrogen. You can't, okay, because it doesn't exist. Estrogen is a term that represents many hormones. Now, here's the thing. Because, oh, yes, it represents 3, E1, E2, E3. That's not true. That's not true at all. And I realized that, for example, and that's why the misleading thing that came up with Christy, my wife, was the fact that they measured her estradiol, which is one of several of them. And what happened was this. And then I realized that, guess what happens? You can really only get 2 really accurate out of the blood, and then you need urine. So if you're not testing both blood and urine together, your view of the estrogens is incomplete. And how can I make a judgment on a woman's body if I have incomplete information, if I just have blood or just have urine or at separate times? It's like those hormones affect a woman both physically and psychologically, affect their fertility, affect them psychologically, affect everything from their big toe to how their thyroid works, everything like this. And we're going to make judgments based even medically or naturally on an incomplete view of a woman's human body. I just don't understand that.
So why do they test estradiol? Why is that like the one that they pinpoint?
Well, because once again, it's one of the major, but not the only one. For example, if you want to look up a hormone that is the major contributor to breast cancer, it's 4-hydroxyestradiol and estradiol. And they're like going, wait, I never even heard of 4-hydroxyestrone and estradiol. Yeah, I know, of course. But that actually creates more damage to what happens to tissue, especially breast tissue, than estradiol, estrone ever will. And so therefore, once again, but here's what happens. It's what can be here. If you want to encompass what the way the current healthcare system looks at things is they only test what they can treat. They only go after what they can actually do something pharmaceutically. And so therefore, once again, and what they do now is this. And so I started at 24 years ago, I called some major labs and said, because when I looked at Chrissy's labs, they had estradiol, which is one of the major cyclic hormones. It fluctuates, week by week. And I said, well, where's estrone? Well, it's mainly a menopausal hormone. Well, no. No, it's more dominant in menopause, but it's needed in cyclic women. Well, where's estriol? Well, I said, now where's all the metabolites? I said, can we measure them? They're like, yes, and why? And insurance doesn't pay for them. I'm like, I don't care. I have a woman who's suffering that cannot have children and stuff like that. So I actually started to dig like crazy. And I'm like going, oh my goodness. If we now can measure these things, and then guess what happened? And the reason why a lot of women get I don't know what's going on with you, can't be a hormonal thing, because they'll run the 1-estradiol and go, well, it's normal. It's normal, so it can't be your hormones. I'm like, wait. And I look at their labs and they're going, where are all the rest of them? And just that simple concept changed women's life.
Wow.
And going, because I said, it's an incomplete view. You would never make a major judgment, including with a pharmaceutical. Now, if you think of it this way, estradiol, okay, it's elevated on you, all right? Did it convert to estriol? Is it converting down properly? Because hormones are produced and then they're converted. And most women really don't have that much of a problem producing hormone. They have conversion problems. And people are like, conversion? Yes, because if it doesn't convert, that estradiol stays elevated a long time, it will result in tissues responding. Because remember, a hormone's nothing but a messenger. That's all it is. That's the term. It's Latin for messenger. And if you have a high estradiol, you get a lot of those messages. It's just that simple. And your breast tissue will continue to replicate and metastasize to the point where it's going to lead to cancers. So what they do, they try to knock it all out. I'm like, but if you stopped all your medication, your current form of healthcare, everything goes back to high estrogens. You're just going to get sick all over again.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so for a woman, we're getting things wrong when it comes to mainstream medical and our hormones. What about for a man's? Are there multiple forms of testosterone? Is there just one?
Well, no. And see, once again, you see low T clinics popping up like Starbucks.
Yeah.
And the reason why is this is because if you think of it this way, the majority of men do not have a problem producing testosterone. What happens is this, though, testosterone, once again, it converts to other hormones. Yes, it converts to DHT. It converts to, you can actually separate free testosterone. But here's the thing. People do not realize that when testosterone is not an edge stage hormone, it converts to some of the major things that can be detrimental also. For example, it will convert to estradiol. And that's why you see 1 out of every 100 breast cancer cases now are men, because estradiol is a contributing factor too, which can lead to 4-hydroxyestradiol and estrone being elevated in a man. You can see that in basic labs. And then here's what happens. But that conversion is majorly stimulated in a man by sugar. Okay. So therefore, men today are, obese more than ever. Obviously, metabolic syndrome being one of the number one contributing things to it, because their diets are horrible. They're eating sugar like crazy. They do things that lead those pathways to be stimulated, and now they're taking their testosterone, they're driving it down by their lifestyle habits, and therefore now they're ended up with estradiol, and that's why you see man boobs, gynecomastia all-time high, obesity all-time high, and therefore, guess what? It now relates in other even conditions that seem more female-like. But remember, the rate of breast cancer in women keep going up, or men keep going up. And guess what happens? And who's leading people to that? I would say it's kind of funny. People go to these doctors to think that they're being healthy, and they're actually leading them down a path that leads them to illness. It's really, it's such a failed viewpoint on everything.
Oh my gosh. So what do we do? I mean, do we go in and demand, like, I need a full estrogen panel workup?
Here's what you think about this. Now, let me give back, and I'm gonna give some analogies, because I probably made some of your audience a little ticked off, going, "Oh my goodness, my friend's a doctor. I don't care if he's a friend; he can still be wrong. If you ever had a friend that's wrong about something, okay? I want you to think about that. Here we go. I'm going to create a model for you guys to give you an understanding of where things should be, okay? Because here's what happens: there's a purpose for each doctor. And most people have no idea what they should do. And majority of people find out doctors like me because everything has failed with them. I tell people, I get the failures of the whole healthcare system we have of today. I said, and if I'm so wrong, why am I so busy? And I get the results that they dream of, to the point that even the current medical system comes to me and says, teach us and do these things. So let's go here. I tell people, if you want to look at healthcare in general, look at the example of this. If we get done with this podcast and you go home and your house is on fire, you're going to call the professional that is the best to handle the situation. And he's the fireman, okay? Now, let's look what happens. They need to get there as quickly as possible, because if they don't, guess what happens? House is going to burn down. But when they get there, they really have things that happen. They get there, they pull up in the truck, a couple firemen jump out. They only have really 2 tools they deal with to deal with the fire in the house. Number 1, an axe. Number 2, a hose. The guy's going to run up your door and window, and what is he going to do with that when he gets up to those things? What's the fireman going to do?
Bust it open? Bust it down?
Right. Bust down. Then the guy with the hose is going to run, he's going to spray on the inside of your house. Now, imagine you have pictures of your kids up there. What happens when they spray the pictures of the kids? What happens?
They get ruined.
They ruin. What about your carpet?
Done.
Wall?
Finished.
Now, think of this way. You called the fire department. They've been there for about 15 minutes, and what have they done to your house so far?
Destroy it.
and you stand there grateful. Do you understand? You stand there grateful because you've been conditioned to think, okay, if they get there in time, do their job, and they're professional, they're going to put out the fire, and you're happy about it. But in the process, they cause a lot of destruction. Now, imagine that they did the job. Say, hey, girls, I did a good job. I'm awesome at my job. You would never let the fire department help you rebuild your house with an axe and a hose, would you? It makes no sense. You'd call a different professional. So you'd call the carpenter. A carpenter would come in, and a carpenter, even if the fire department was walking around thinking they did a wonderful job, if a carpenter who deals with the same exact house walks in and says, man, this house is a freaking mess. I got to rip out this wall, rip out this carpet. I got to do all these things to help you rebuild your house. And I always tell people, who's right? And people get the answer right. It's based on a need of the house. For example, if right now somebody in your studio or somebody has a heart attack and stroke, once again, you wouldn't want me there to grab a knife and see if I help your friend. We're going to call 911, get in the hospital as quickly as possible. And let's call medicine the fire department. Do you follow me where I'm going with this? And they're going to use their axes and hoses to put the fire out. Don't believe me? They're going to stick a hose into his arm and they're going to start pumping the medication to his body. Now, I got a simple question for you. When they put that medication into his body, is it good for his body?
I guess it depends on the needs of his body.
Put it this way. If we spray water on the walls, is it good for the walls?
It's not good for the walls. I mean, it's putting the fire out, but it's not good for the walls. Yeah.
But let's do it. That's where the confusion comes in. I didn't ask you if it was good for, I didn't ask you if it put out the fire. I asked you if it was good for his body. See, because every medication, regardless if it saves a life or gets rid of pain or symptom, it causes damage. Who says so? The people who made it.
So is it that we're putting Band-Aids? I mean, we're just masking, we're looking at symptoms and doctors are just kind of covering up the symptoms to make it go away?
We can even alter physiology to make something do okay for a short time. If somebody has high blood pressure, I don't want you to stroke out, so you lower it for a little bit. But guess what happens? During that time, there's major negative side effects. And that's why when you guys were lied to over the last 3 years, when I don't want you to get kicked off because I've been kicked off every media, and well, why is it back? But this is, look what happened over the last 3 years. The government lied to you, said it's safe and effective. There actually is no such thing as a safe and effective drug because even if it saves your life, it still causes destruction. So stop lying to people. Tell people the truth. This could cause some damage, but we're going to put out the fire a little bit. This can do this. Be honest with people. Let them make their own choice, okay? Now, but even if the drug saved a person's life, if that happened to you, you're married, correct? I remember from your videos, you're married, correct? Okay, if that happened to your husband, you're thinking the doctor, oh, thanks for saving my husband. But then you think like a carpenter. You want the house to be around for a long time. You want your husband to be around for a long time. You say, Doc, what caused these problems? And we'll get you to prevent it. And they look at you and say, do you understand how bad that fire is? And they say, you need to have him water his house down every day for the rest of his life. That's why when people start medications, when do they ever get off them? See, that's the thing. Well, I'm a carpenter doctor come along going, we need to rebuild houses. But how can you rebuild a house while having a proper blueprint? How can you mess with women's hormones or mess with anything without having the proper testing? But see, they test for fires, cancer, heart disease, diabetes. They're so focused on disease. And I'm sitting there going, how does the body work? Let's get it back to normal because I just have this weird theory that God created women to have babies. If you got a uterus, you should be able to pop out kids like Skittles. You know what I'm saying? And
I need to learn how to do this. I've been trying, but it hasn't been working.
Well, remember, you've been going through the act, and see, that's why, I just got so obsessed and fascinated with the female body because you know why? Because like a guy, we can produce testosterone and we can mess things up just by conversion, doing things that way. Women's bodies are extremely much more complex. For example, we talked about that hormone estradiol. A woman's hormones fluctuate. And so I really started to study. Remember, I learned stuff in my undergraduate and graduate school about hormones and stuff, but they only teach you so much. And I started to realize going, oh my goodness. I started to look at the patterns of female hormones and I realized that guess what happens? Hormones affect a woman very physically, but also affects a woman psychologically. And it changes every single week. So therefore, and let me give you a simple example. You know, I guarantee that you've woken up in the morning, put your bra on, and guess what happens? It's all nice and full. Next week, you put your bra on, you're like, it's all a bunch of shiver raisins. Like, where did they go? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And it's like, because why? Because there's a hormonal change and therefore there's physical changes. And that's why women got to get off a scale because by nature, your body will put fat in certain places sometimes and they go, Doc, I eat different, I exercise the same and I gain weight. Yeah, because your body needs that fat for certain times of the month for you to even produce hormones and do things, even affects you psychologically. So you don't want to be altering all this stuff. But then here's what happens this. But this has probably been the most impactful thing that I never realized that brought so much peace to women, especially God-given women, is the fact this. Do you understand I said that hormones affect you physically, but they also affect you mentally? That means, ladies, each week you are psychologically a very different person. And if you ever look at women, they get so frustrated because they say, Doc, you understand, every week I'm so different, I feel unstable. I said, you're supposed to be unstable. There is no such thing as a stable woman. It's impossible to achieve. And therefore, if you think you're going to be stable like a man's hormones are like a straight across, you are going to live a delusional world thinking that you're going to have the same emotions as a guy who, once again, we can be this. And so therefore, you're dramatically different. And in our society, our culture, even derogatory women say, well, women are so emotional. They're supposed to be. They're supposed to be. That's the way they're created. And if you just look at the hormone pattern, how it affects their brain, how it affects their breast tissue, how it affects their butt, how it affects their big toe, all those things change on them every single week. And for guys, we're pretty straight across all the time. It's pretty simple for us.
That makes so much sense. And it's a little infuriating because one of the lies of feminism, which we're not huge fans of feminism around here, is that it tells us that men and women should be the same, that we should be able to pursue all of the same things in all of the same ways. But you're telling us there are such, like, our bodies are so different that we should not expect to be the same, nor should we try to force ourselves to be the same.
And since you brought this up, I'm going to bring this up like crazy because men and women are not the same. We're not equal. For example, let me show you how we're not equal. And this still even pisses conservatives off and stuff like that, which drives me nuts. Once again, if we talk about things that really affect female hormones, men, lifestyle, and things like that are going to really affect their testosterone. Number one thing by far, and I can prove this scientifically, I can show you hundreds of thousands of labs on this, psychological stress will destroy a woman's hormones faster than anything. And if I were to attack your husband, his testosterone goes up. If you were to have the stress, your hormones go down. God created men to handle stress, not women. So I'm sorry, ladies, if you try to even keep up with me physically, you will get sick. A man is meant to take that burden. And I can't believe the Christian community doesn't understand this. And so a Christian man puts all this stress on the wife. I'm going, dude, you know what happens to her hormones? You want sex from her? Good luck on that one. You're going to tank her hormones. And guess what happens? Because you know this. Your husband had a rough day. He's complaining. He broke his arm. Later at night, he's like, honey, you want to have sex? And you're like, you broke your freaking arm. I'm good. You understand? And with women, some mental stress, basically the panties are super glued to them. I get it. I understand it. That's how they're, and there is a effect to it with your cortisol and your progesterone and stuff like that. And I mapped all that out. And I just started teaching this, and next thing you know, Christian conference start calling me up and say, can you teach at a marriage conference? I'm like, why? And I'm like, because this makes so much sense the way God created us. I'm like, yeah, it's basic biology. Just look it up.
So God knew what he was doing in the beginning when he created Adam and then Eve, and they were both very different.
Yeah, and that's why it gets really, and I know because I've watched some of your stuff, we have to stop, accepting this transgender thing as normal, because here's what happens this. Do you understand that if a male starts to become dominant in estradiol and other estrogens, he will take on female characteristics. But it's not normal. No, he thinks he's a woman. I don't disagree with you. I've sat across them. I still do with them today, where I sat across them and they truly believe it. And I don't even try to argue with them, because you know why? There's physical and emotional things that come with it that way. So if a man gets high estradiol, or if a woman gets high testosterone, they can start bringing on those characteristics. But even both from, if I even inject you with synthetic testosterone, you can start to grow facial hair where men do. You're saying, so this concept, but to accept it as normal, it's so disrupting, especially since our medical field, our farmers, our food system puts endocrine disruptors in there, and wonder why I tell people don't eat that stuff and don't do those things. And why do we even allow these things or birth control, which is just absolutely disgusting. I can't understand the Christian community doesn't grasp on that birth control alters you both physically and mentally, and even how you view the world, even how you view a guy. That's why sometimes women, they get married and they're Christians who are on birth control, and all of a sudden they get off birth control, and because they want to have a baby, and they look at the man and go, I don't love you anymore. Well, it's something wrong. There must be Satan in our world or something like that. No, you've been altered by endocrine disruptor, that now even how you view your spouse is extremely different.
Okay, can you unpack that a little bit more? Because that's a bombshell you just dropped for a lot of women who are on birth control. And we've talked about this before on our show with another doctor, so it's not the first time. But I mean, the way you just unpacked it was big. Okay,
watch this, ladies. You could do this. Just take normal hormones with everything normal. Do you understand how you view the world every week is different? Do you understand how you respond to stress, how you respond to your kids, how you respond to husband? Because remember, these messages change through the week, okay, through the month. Now, imagine taking a chemical that alters. Do you understand that birth control is classified as an endocrine disruptor? That means how you view everything is extremely different. Yes, there's physical manifestation, but there's mental ones. And that's why all of a sudden now a woman gets off that, and now her viewpoint of the world does change and stuff. And I'm going, and that's why you see us. They've even looked at that. They go, oh my goodness, and they've studied it, going, okay, listen. All of a sudden they start to look and go, hey, I'm took out birth control. I'm emotionally different. I don't even care about some of the things I cared about before. I don't even care about this individual I'm with anymore that way. And it drives people absolutely crazy. I'm like going, what are you talking about? If I tell people is this, just smoke a little marijuana. It changes your state. you're taking
Mm.
something 1,000 times worse in birth control, and you think it doesn't alter the way you view the world? And you understand endocrine disruptors then.
And so many women are on birth control and are told by their doctors, this is what you need to take, even before they need it for birth control purposes, just for like acne
Yep.
control and other issues. So
Yep.
women are starting young. And you're saying
Yep.
all of these years that they're on the pill, their bodies are completely disrupted and they're not functioning in a healthy way. Their hormones are completely whacked out.
Yep, changes brain function, changes endocrine responses, changes pituitary, changes ovarian responses, and changes. It's really sad. And we
Wow.
accept this as normal. You
Yeah.
understand? And it's like because I've been. Like I said, the fiber is this. If you go back to my history, I haven't said anything different in 25 years. Because and they said, and here's what happens, and here's your Christian community and stuff like that. Because I said, people come up at church and go, what am I supposed to do? There's other forms of birth control. You understand? And really what happens, I think it's very important that a man, husband and wife understand a female cycle, because there's a narrow window when a woman can really get pregnant. You understand? And so
Right.
therefore you guys can sit down, discuss things and go, okay, listen, let's just be a little bit more safe here during this time and stuff. And
Just a
there's
more
nothing that's
natural
over.
approach. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, just understand the biochemistry of a female body. It's not that difficult. I could, I have 4 daughters, you know what I'm saying? 2 of them are cyclic and I have a wife. So guess what happens? I understand all their cycles like crazy. Why? Because I know that what happens is this. The amount of different emotions I'm going to have in my household, I expect. You know what I'm saying? I'm like
Yeah.
going, okay, during this week, they're going to be a little bit more emotional. That's cool. I understand. I'm a dad. I'm also a husband. But it's understandable. You saying? I employ
Yes.
hundreds of women. You know what I'm saying? I don't want them stressed out for one thing, because I don't want them affecting their health. But on the flip side, I expect them to be emotional. I really do. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so therefore, it's understandably,
So all men need to come to you for a course. All fathers with daughters and all husbands need to come to you to say, help me understand how to live with my wife in an understanding way. And
Well,
vice
it's funny
versa.
because it's interesting, because I had a bunch of women come to me saying, you got to write a book. I'm like, I don't want to write a book. I think it's stupid. And we put together I Disagree book, and it became an international bestseller within a week. And
Wow.
and that became such a huge hit. And then I started speaking. It was called the Hormone Connection, because I said it's understanding the opposite sex that way, and how they're created, and say how God created them and how it works, and actually how to get it to work. For example, like ladies, I can teach you how testosterone works, and you can use it to your advantage to get anything you want from your husband. It's not that difficult. You
Okay, are
understand?
we going into sex drives now? Because I want to go
Absolutely.
there. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes, let's talk about how our hormones impact our sex drives as a man and a woman. Because there are stereotypes in culture that say a man always has the high sex drive. He is like an animal, just thinks about sex all the time. I know that's not true for every
Yeah.
male. I've talked to
No,
wives who are like, my
no.
husband, yeah, he doesn't want
That's
sex as much as me. But then for women, we're kind of told like, you're not supposed to want sex. At least when you're single, you're supposed to. Then you get married and it's like your sex drive tanks. I mean, what is going on here?
Well, here's what happens. But see, let's even take, sorry, but you brought yourself up, so I'm going to bring it on this since
Okay.
you said it. You want more sex than he does, but here's what happens but you're also sick. Do you understand? See, women don't admit they're sick. If you have high estrogen, you're sick. It's not normal. Do you say it's going to lead, and you don't have any fire yet, like a disease, so they say, well, we'll wait till you fall apart. You understand? On the flip side, here's what happens. Now, let me say this a little bit, because in my seminar, if you look at it, testosterone increases and stays that way their whole life. The only reason testosterone goes down is because the doctors that take care of them let their house fall apart and rot, and then their testosterone drops. Don't confuse calm with normal. Okay, and here's the point. My testosterone is at 851. Now, therefore, guess what? My sex drive is rampant every single day. And I take nothing. I've never taken a steroid, never taken anything away. I actually just keep my body good, and I know how to maintain my testosterone at great levels, and I'm 49 years old. But here's
And
the
no
point.
supplements either, like no natural supplements.
Oh, no, Mary, because I'll do things like zinc and different tribulus and things like that,
Okay,
things that my
okay.
body can use and everybody can take it. If
Yeah.
I drink the whole bottle, it wouldn't be no difference. But here's the
Okay,
point.
no, just no medication. Got it.
No, absolutely not. Okay. But here's what I want you to think about this way. So therefore, biologically, a guy's going to have a decent testosterone, and it's a very aggressive, sex-driven hormone that way. And so, so what they do is they're going to have a drive. Now, there is a little difference on this, but here's what happens. I will tell you this. Stress doesn't lower a man's testosterone, but what it does is this. Testosterone's a very laser-focused hormone. That's why a man can focus on things. That's why you can talk to a man, and if he has something on his mind, he may be looking at you. He can even hear you from a distance. He doesn't hear what you say. He hears Charlie Brown's teacher. Okay. And then you're like, we talked about this. Like, no, we didn't. Yes, we did. No, we didn't. And you were looking right at me. I still wasn't listening. You know what I'm saying? And just because we have something on our mind. And good testosterone-based men that actually deal with a lot in the world because they're supposed to be providers and protectors, if they have something on their mind, real good testosterone-based men are more like sex on demand. Like all of a sudden your husband be like, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, let's have sex. What happened is he had some peace come over him. So his stress that he was thinking about was gone. So therefore his natural instinct is what? Is guess what? But I'm chasing now. You know what I'm saying? That's why you've experienced this. If your husband has any kind of career, he may come home and guess what happens? And he's there, but he's really not. Because he's still, once again, women have an aspect of multitasking because estrogens make them good multitaskers. Testosterone makes it very laser focused. And women hate when I say this. The feminist movement hate when I say this. You understand that every profession on the planet, from a hairdresser to a cook, is dominated by men. Do you know why? Because we can tune out the world and stay laser focused and become the best of the best at any profession. You understand? It's why we can. Women cannot do that. Heck, I guarantee that even during this podcast, you thought about some other things, even though you were listening to me. It's just by nature it happens. You know what I'm saying?
How did you know? Especially because my phone I'm getting messages. I'm like, stay focused, stay focused. Don't think about that next thing.
Here's an even better one. You've been in the middle of sex and you stopped your husband and say, did you take out the garbage? And he's like, I'm right here. Do you say
No, my husband can see the look in my eyes when he knows my brain just went to another land. And he's like, where did you go? Where did you go? Come back.
That's the thing. But see, but that's by nature. But see, but then men are like, no, that's going to happen to him that way. You know what I'm saying? But vice versa, a man gets sex on his brain, he can't get rid of it. That's all he focuses on. You know what I'm saying? So the concept of it that way, and Durham, there's women, and I've said this, and this blew up on like crazy, because here's what happens this. If a woman starts having a massive sex drive all the time, there's going to be hormonal problems, and it's going to lead to illness. So that scares me. So a woman says, I mean, doc, I have a sex drive all the time. I'm like, I'm getting scared for you down the road, because there's going to be some health problems that manifest from those abnormal hormonal levels right now.
Okay, what is driving in a woman who feels that way? Let's talk to that woman for a minute. Why does she have a sex drive all the time? What's wrong with her hormones that's making her that way? And why is that not normal?
It's no different than testosterone. Look at women that have androgen dominant problems. You know, and they end up with PCOS, endometriosis. They're going to have a sex drive. They're androgen dominant. Remember, you think this way, if a guy takes anabolic steroids, they can have massive aggression and things like that. It's really quite scary. So women become androgen all the time. I have women come in and say, Doc, I have sex drive constantly, and I could have sex twice a day. Of course, run their labs like, well, no wonder. You have the testosterone levels of a dude. You know what I'm saying? And so therefore, and I'll give you a perfect example. I'll give you a perfect example of my nurse practitioner, Nicole. And she's been with me for 8 years. She came in as a patient because she had PCOS, which is an androgen dominant, testosterone dominant, probably DHT a little bit dominant too, and dihydrotestosterone. And I ran her labs. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's extremely high, even though her doctor would never have, but they would give her metformin and other medications trying to endocrine disrupt her process that way. And I looked at her husband and I said, listen, when I get her back to normal, she's not going to have a sex drive that you enjoy so much. She's going to, because if you look at the fluctuation of hormones, women from a healthy standpoint basically have a sex drive about 2 weeks out of the month. Do you understand?
And is that the first 2 weeks? Is that their follicular phase? Or when did the 2 weeks happen?
Well, see, by nature, medical create a follicular phase and luteal phase just because of the pituitary hormones that are released. But really what happens is if you look at the hormones, I divide it out in the course of a women's hormones change 4 times in the month. So I created different zones. You understand? And because I like the analogy of a house, I tell people, I always say weekday, and the cycle roughly is about 26 to 32 days. It can fluctuate a little bit. Ladies, don't freak out if all of a sudden you have 28 one day and 30 next month of that. Mental stress can throw it off so quickly. It's crazy, okay? You don't have to be regular. Now, if you're below 26 or above 32, now there's some health issues going on. But the idea is this, even stay between 26 and 32, you're fine. But the idea is about every 7 days, the pattern changes. And so you're going to have 4 kind of different zones that kind of come about that way. So in like the second week from day roughly, if it's space 28 days, day 8 through 14 is probably one of the highest because you also have your peak of testosterone during that time. And then your 4th week is kind of common to have it, which would be both second parts of each luteal and follicular phase. Because here's what happens.
Interesting.
In the first, when a woman starts to menstruate in day 1, I call it construction zone. That woman's uterus is under construction, it's changing like the house and everything. You gotta understand, you have a massive amount of loss of tissue, but also buildup. So your body, your hormones that are needed to create that the endometrial lining, different things, and change the breast tissue, aren't going to push towards sex drive. They're going to push towards repair. But then also that repair is done, and now you move into, and that's why, if you ever think of it this way, that's why the second week a woman can actually have a sex drive, because why? She's right there by fertility. She's right there. You understand? It's a great process. I say, if you ever really study the female body, it's absolutely fascinating, and all the things that got to coordinate together for it to even happen.
Yeah.
And so that's the great part, and that's why the medical system is so, they focus on all diseases that they don't focus on the function of things. So they'll look and go, well, I don't see any disease, so therefore you should have no problem getting pregnant. They tell millions of women that per year, and they're so misleading them. Just because you haven't had a fire, it doesn't mean your house isn't rotten. It just hasn't caught on fire yet. And so we have a lot of sick, rotten people walking around when they may never catch fire, but they'll never be able to do the things they're supposed to do. And so I built my whole career just on fertility. Wow. And to the point where it's like, because once again, and I mean, we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of success stories with all the stuff and they've been through in vitro, they've been in vivo, they've been through all the things that way and been told. And I even have some oops babies where women got pregnant in their 50s, you know what I'm saying? Because they got their hormones normal. And they're like, and what happens this? But they didn't get pregnant, so when they were sassy, they didn't protect themselves. Next thing you know, they had an oops baby. So that's what happened too. So
okay, what about the woman who doesn't have a sex drive at all? She's like, I don't ever feel like I want to have sex with my husband.
Once again, there's a health issue. There's a function issue that way. It's not normal. Do you know what I'm saying?
So not something she should just accept. Like, that's just the way I am.
No.
End of story.
No, not at all. Not at all. And not at all. Because it's just still a health issue. And Daryl, I'm also going to be sympathetic towards women this way, is this. I think that the world has really messed up women dramatically, because here's what happens this. Because men are so wussified today, they don't know how to take on stress because their mamas told them that they're special and stuff like that. And so therefore, guess what happens? And women try to say that they're equal. And now they go to work just as much as men do. And that mental stress every single day, I understand why women don't have sex drives. Go work all day long, and then Christian men expect their wives to come home and do exactly if they were staying home, and then they're going to watch some TV or watch a football game and sit around because they're the man, provider, protector. I'm like going, no, I'm sorry. You want to be a man, provider, protector, let your wife stay home and stuff like that. Otherwise, get your butt going, because she physically pushes herself, and therefore, even if she doesn't present with any major illness, her stress is so elevated, her hormones tank, so she's just trying to get through the damn day. And they're like, okay, honey, I'm a good Christian man. Have sex with me. Good luck on that, man. You're not even putting her in a position for her body to thrive, for her to even want it.
Well, we're told that women can have it all. I mean, I know there's so much that we aren't even going to be able to get to. Like we at Girldefined often say, God created men and women to be equally valuable, but purposely different. Like we are equal in worth. We are both made in God's image as male and female, but he made us to be different for a reason. And like you're saying, there's a reason God made a woman with the uterus and the ability to give birth. Like that speaks to her greater calling and her greater design. And as we're learning through medical science and study, and people like you, even our hormones speak to this greater design of the woman being the life giver, the nurturer, the homemaker, and the husband being the protector, the provider, the conqueror. Like our hormones are speaking to this design.
Now, I want you to write this down. This will change your life forever, because this is what all young couples
I'm getting my phone to take notes.
Here we go. Men have to create their value. Women have to preserve it. And one of the biggest values that women have is to be able to give life. Do you understand? And so, if value is not looked that way, then what happens is you're going to say, well, honey, you got to go to work. You got to do things. You're actually going to devalue what is the most valuable thing about her is life-giving that way, because her life can't do it that way. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, on the flip side, a guy's value is what he brings to society. It's like, and I tell these young Christian girls, I said, you guys marry a lot for potential, and they don't bring value. That brings stress on you. And now you have to go to society, which men are meant to be out in society, dominant, they can handle stress. And now you're supposed to still have that value of being able to give life giver. Good luck. Your body can't handle it.
Because we're trying to be both. Women are told we can be both, and we should be both. We should be the provider, the protector, the conqueror, and the life giver, the nurturer, the homemaker. Like women are burning out, and we are buying into this lie of feminism that says we can have it all, we should have it all, we should erase gender distinctions. They don't matter. They don't mean anything. They're socially constructed things, when in fact, God had it right all along. From Genesis with Adam and Eve, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing. And I can prove it biologically. I'm like, give me a woman that crushes it and works all the time. That way, let me test your hormones. It's like these fitness women. Ladies, you're supposed to have curves. It's like, remember, because stress really can tear up a woman. And if you exercise too much or in the wrong time, you can take your hormones. And you can get your shorty shorts on and take a 6-pack ab that way. There's no woman that's supposed to have a 6-pack. It's impossible. You're not a man. And so therefore what happens, you end up stressing your body out so much because, they tell you that you're supposed to look this way. And therefore you take your hormones and you wonder why. And these fitness experts call me and they go, I can't have a child. Yeah, because you haven't menstruated for 7 years because you're trying to look a certain way. There, ladies, you know this. You can even have mental stress where you skip or delay your cycle. And now you're supposed to push yourselves to massive societal things, because when you enter society, ladies, you enter a competitive world to where I tell people, you enter society, you are asexual now, because when it comes to business and money, if you're trying to compete with me, I don't care if you're a woman, I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to outperform you. If you're stressed out and sick, we don't care because you're competitive. You're not my wife. You're not my daughters. You see? And so that's why it's like, I'm like going, so be very careful on that. And I said, so therefore you have to choose. And so and you think this way, and do you know how many women great women understand their value of being a life giver and being a mother that way?
Yeah.
And then they're told they can't have it. You understand? You might as well you might destroy them. And so when doctors say you can't have children, I'm like going, ooh, don't play God that way. Medicine plays God all the time and stuff like that. So it's a whole other story right there.
Yeah, no kidding. So back to the abs and the fitness thing. That's a huge thing that I see right now, that so many women are jumping on board. You see all the booty pics on Instagram of like these perfectly sculpted 6-pack bodies. And are you telling us that it's okay to have some cellulite? Are we hearing that from you?
Well, remember, just look what happens from the cyclic aspect of your hormones. Your body needs a certain amount of fat to produce hormone. And that's why when they deplete it so much, that's why if you ever look at these women that exercise all the time, they actually can suffer from amenorrhea where they have no cycle whatsoever. Look at your daughters that are in the cyclic years and they play so many sports. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And see that, and we accept it because it's so common that we accept it as normal. Do not confuse common with normal. And because your doctors have absolutely no clue about this stuff, they say, well, that happens. Yeah, and you're setting yourself up for some major hormonal issues later and some diseases down the road. And so that's why breast cancer, you hear us. You think that we need more pink ribbons and more breast cancer awareness, or a different perspective on it? Because it keeps on getting worse. You understand? Where death rates are worse, the amount of people, and now men are getting it more than ever. There's more cancers, more infertility, more heart disease for women ever in history. I think maybe your doctor's not the expert you think he is.
Yeah, something's not working. So how do we get healthy? I mean, leave us with some good advice for everybody who's like, I get it. Things aren't working. I have issues. I'm sick. What do we do?
Well, if you think about let's take any hormonal issue. Like I said before, ladies, got a simple question. They say, Doc, I have endometriosis or anything, or any condition, or I don't even have normal cycles. I'll say, okay, let me see all your labs. Let me see all your hormones. Oh, wait, do you know in 25 years of practice, millions of labs from all the hundreds of doctors I have and things like that, I've never had one patient yet ever come in and have their hormones tested properly. Not once.
And are you talking about the estrogens?
I'm talking estrogen, progesterone, the whole, again, the thyroid even measured properly. I've never seen it done once in my career. Do you understand? I guarantee if I dug into your stuff, you are still having an incomplete view of what's going on with you. And that's why you're still suffering. And see, that's the sad part. So without labs, everything is a guess. Everything. You know what's really cool? God created all of us extremely different. We have some physiological kind of things, but what our body needs and what we go through. And here, I can show you twins that have dramatically different things going on with them, even though genetically they're the same. And remember, and stop this BS that you're sick because you're your mother. That's a bunch of lie. You're not created to be a disease monger. You're created to be very vibrant and healthy. And that is, but see, doctors that convince you it's genetic. No. Your mom did the same bad habits as you did. And so therefore you take those same patterns on, and that's your family history right there. It has nothing to do with your genetics. You see, I'll show you women that have the BRCA gene and they'll never have to worry about breast cancer and stuff. It's just crazy and stuff. We think that susceptibility makes us destined for stuff like that. And the Christian community falls for this BS. But they also fell for COVID too, so we won't even go in that direction. But
we won't go there on this episode. So what are some steps for women listening? They're like, okay, yes, I want to get all of my hormones tested. Yep. I mean, it sounds like doctors, they're not even going to read them correctly. I mean, where's the hope in this for women?
You don't need a doctor to get your labs done. So here's what happens. I will give you the blood work you should done. I'll give it to you. You can post it on your stuff, postpone. And then get something called a Dutch test. It's just a simple urine test that measures the other hormones you need. Okay, it's simple. Start there. And you'd be surprised just by getting those labs done. Remember, and I say this, you do not need a doctor to get labs done. You do not. Let me make that very clear. You need to know it. You can go to a lab, you can order a test kit and stuff like that. You can order right from Dutch itself in that way. And remember, let me make it very clear. I get nothing from them for telling people to do this. Zero. None. I have no affiliation with any lab and things like that. I just tell people, it's like, I just want you to get tested properly because now it's your roadmap. It's your blueprint. It's yours.
Yeah.
You understand? It's like, I literally looked at one of my 17-year-old daughter's, one of her labs this morning. Do you know what I'm saying? Because why?
Oh, wow.
Is there anything wrong with your daughter? No. It's just that I want to see how her body's always doing. I don't want to wait for a fire. I'm a carpenter. I want to keep her house doing well. Do you know what I'm saying? And
yes.
So it happens this. So you don't need a doctor to get labs. So I want to make that very clear because people think I'm trying to say, no, listen, just in the idea, a doctor should really teach you how to take care of yourself so it's not needed. I can honestly tell you, people say, well, doc, but you've done so well your whole career. Yeah, because you know why? Because people do bad things constantly all the time. Do you understand over the next 3 months, my clinics will be extremely busy because all you guys are going to eat horrible stuff. You're going to stress out like crazy. You're not going to take care of yourself. You're not going to sleep well. And your body's going to fall apart. And I have to put it back together. And my doctor has to put it back together. And so I'm sitting there going, stop all the stress, stop all the sugar. You understand? I tell people, your bad habits are just job security for me. Because you know why? And I'm a doctor saying, don't do these things. You know, I tell people this. I said, ladies, how many of you guys actually like going to all of the Christmases, all the family? You're ticked off after time. The kids are crying. You don't want to go somewhere. This, don't go. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's like, and you're going to go eat crappy food. You're going to eat crappy food, do all stuff of this. You feel like crap. And then you need a couple of days to recover. You understand? You keep doing that on a regular basis. Halloween. Oh my goodness. Halloween's going to destroy your insides. Because you're going to eat all this crappy candy. Yeah.
So really your approach is, it's health. I mean, it's what you eat is what you are, taking care of yourself, exercising, just not overdoing it, like not going for the six pack, but just trying to be healthy.
There's times that I create a little graph. See, all this stuff is free on my website. I created graphs to say women.
Okay. Tell us what your website is.
Oh, it's just thewellnessway.com. The Wellness Way. It's all my clinics.
Thewellnessway.com. Okay.
And Europe, that way. And just, and what's that? And I say, women, here's week 1. Here's the kind of exercises you do. Week 2, here's the time you do. Week 3, week 4. That way, it's just, you know, it's good guidance. Remember, the purpose of a doctor is to be a teacher to them so they can take care of themselves. And if something comes up where they need a little bit more attention, great, you have that for a short time. But the idea is this, but it's really simple. If you think about a doctor, if you know any, and you're pretty young yet, but let's say your dad, okay? Oh, James, you have high blood. I don't know what dad's name is. James, you have high blood pressure. Here's your high blood pressure medication. Okay, doc, when am I get off? Never. Never. We accept that as normal. And those things are chemicals that rot out the body. Who said so? The people who made it. And I'm like, I can't believe you guys fall for that stuff. You saying?
I guess like, because we're told this is the only option, right?
I know.
I mean, we're not told, oh, you could do this. Or you could take this other path. Like the path that you're presenting isn't mainstream. It's not one that we're really offered, which is so sad.
Nope. And like I said, in the last 3 years, censored, FBI show up at my house. So it's a whole nother story, all good things like that. And it's like, because I won't not speak the truth. Because the only thing I fear in life is God. I don't give a crap about anybody, man. You know, I don't give a crap about anybody. Threaten me, put me in jail, FBI show up. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Because I just believe God's going to protect me. And if I end up in jail, great. You know what I'm saying? Not from anything illegal. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just,
you can help all the people in jail get really healthy.
I just start consulting them. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, but the food would be pretty bad. So, you know what I'm saying?
Oh man, yeah, that'd be rough. You wouldn't have a lot of options in jail. So try not to go there.
Remember, and if you look at some of the things that, and here's what happens, and men have to do different things than women. They do. You know what I'm saying? That's why I tell people it's really interesting. Men and women, it's kind of funny. They can sit down and eat together, but they're not going to be able to always eat the same things. You know what I'm saying? Men have different needs than women. And women need different needs per their time of cycle that way. There's times, ladies, that you can eat a little bit more sugar during the month. There's times you should stay away from it. There's times you need a lot more protein. And all of you vegan women, please, remember, they always said, remember, go back to Genesis. God made us to tend the animals and then tenderize them. Okay.
Oh my goodness. I have some vegan friends that are going to be very offended by that statement.
It's so difficult. It's so difficult to ever be able to get enough protein being a vegan.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there going, don't do it. You're just going to end up, and that's why they end up with so many, that's why vegans end up with so many hormonal problems. And it's really funny.
Mm.
And they have to supplement with things you get from your animal products. I'm like, aren't you missing the point? You know, Sam? And I get it if you just
Interesting.
like it, if you just like animals, don't want to eat them, but then you have to, I'm sorry. I'm not an animal person. I love, I treat animals just fine that way. But if a dog dies, I'm not crying. If a horse dies, I'm not crying. It's like going, you can love your animals, but they're not humans. You know, Sam.
You're
It just
just
doesn't mean
illustrating the difference between a man and a woman. We have an adorable little
that.
dog who's currently squeaking and I'm trying to get her to be quiet. But I
Yeah.
think about the day one day when she will die and I literally get teary-eyed. And I was telling my husband about this and he's like, "What? You think about the day she's going to die and you cry
Yeah.
about that?" Like he can't even understand. I'm like, "There you go.
I'm like,
Hormones,
get in our
men and
dog.
women, we are
Yeah.
different."
We're very different, man. Get in our dog. Here, honey, I get you in our dog. Stop crying. Okay. It's that kind of thing. So we're just,
Yeah.
yeah. But no, but that's
Awesome.
the thing. It's like there's things that people can do, and you can take active, and remember, and you can
Mhm.
stay actively healthy. You really can, and stuff. And it's like, but once again, but if I can convince you that your problems are genetic, that means you have no control over them, and you got to rely on us
Yeah.
as experts. But I got a simple
Yeah.
question for you: how'd that do you guys over the last 3 years? You
Mm.
understand? You realize that you get lied to a lot over the last 3 years. Healthcare in our current form is really corrupt and it really lies to a lot of people. But the idea is this: outcomes, more sick people, more women suffering infertility ever in history, more
Yeah.
endocrine based problems ever in history. We need a different perspective.
And you're bringing us that perspective and that hope.
Yep.
And I appreciate it so much. I know
Yep.
we're out of time. Dr.
Yep.
Patrick, thank you for your wisdom, your
Oh, yeah.
insight, your humor. This was really fun. It was great having you on the
Yep.
show.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on.